2 years ago, college football gaming finally returned after about a decade away from the franchise. Back in 2014, we all remember the ruling handed down by the Northwestern players, or the judge ruled in favor of the Northwestern players, that name, image, and likeness was something that they had to be compensated for. And as a result, NCAA, the franchise that I grew up with, was no longer a thing. So to hear that name, image, and likeness finally, players could take advantage of it a few years ago, and the landscape of college sports has changed forever since then. The rumblings started coming into life that, hey, does that mean that we're going to start seeing some NCAA or college football video games coming back from EA? And the rumors were realized, and EA finally announced that college football would be making its return. And this was huge news for me. I mean, I grew up playing NCAA football since the PS2 era. NCAA Football 2003 was my introduction to the series. Joey Harrington was on the cover. But all that to say, college football gaming has been a huge part of my life for 20 years. And the return of the franchise genuinely felt it felt nostalgic. It felt like I was going back to being a kid again. And it was such a breath of fresh air. Now, that being said, leading up to College Football 25, I was definitely concerned that EA was just going to turn the game into Madden with college uniforms. And I think many other channels have said this already. But Madden had become stale, overly animation driven. I fear the magic. I feared at the time that the magic of NCAA football would all but disappear, and it would just become a carbon copy of Madden with a little bit of paint over the top. But ultimately, they hammered in on the environments, the individual environments of these schools. I think they actually sent out people with recording devices to go listen to student section chants. They had a lot of these universities and these programs, traditions baked into the game. And the on the field feel of the game, it really felt epic. I mean, when you're on the road at Penn State, and Mo Bamba's playing, the crowd's on their feet going loud, it really felt intense. And the speed of the game, I got to say, the speed of the game is what surprised me. It did not feel like Madden. A lot of big explosive plays could happen. It felt a little more arcadey than the direction that Madden had gone, where Madden was trying to get uber realistic without getting uber realistic, by the way. But none of the excitement, I would say. So I had to give college football its flowers there. The gameplay was fun, and I really enjoyed it. My buddy Garrett and we played a long dynasty in that game. I think we got to like 20 or 25 years, which is insane. That's how much college football we played, with 25 coming back. I mean, it had just been a long time coming. Now, there certainly were some negatives. For me, one thing that jumps right off the page was the offensive line logic was rough. The blocking was pretty much pathetic. If you drop back a little too far, the offensive tackles would just let defensive ends blow right by you and just get into the backfield, bring the sack down. Running the ball was hit or miss. The defense could feel impossible at times. I mean, you could have a 70 overall freshman quarterback turn into Tom Brady and light you up for 400 plus yards, throwing a 30 of 32, from the pocket, no interceptions, and there's just nothing you could do. And don't get me wrong, that happens in college football. Quarterbacks can pull that off in college. I'm not saying they can't, but my gosh, when your team is the higher rated team, like we're talking 90 plus overall defense, and you're getting shredded like that, come on now. Tons of cheese plays, like jet sweeps, super overpowered in that game. And, I could see the argument, well, that was why part of the reason why the game was so fun. I totally get that. But after a while, I mean, all I did was play Dynasty. Garrett and I, that's all we do. We play Dynasty by ourselves. I usually run my own Dynasty on the side, and I just play against the computer. And I want it to feel like a bit of a challenge. When I have it on Heisman, I don't want it to feel like, oh, if I just do a jet sweep, I have an automatic touchdown. I mean, that takes all the fun out of it. You want to feel like you have to work to move the ball down the field. And that's what the old NCAA games were so good at doing. It didn't feel scripted. It didn't feel animation based. It felt like anything could happen. That was definitely very immersion breaking, I would say. Certain route concepts were unstoppable. Like I'm talking about the double wide stacks come to mind, where you just have your 4 wide receivers split out wide. You send them all on go routes, and the defense, I mean, they just could not stop it. The computer it broke it, and you had a go route touchdown 90% of the time. And when you can do that in the back of your head, and you literally have to make house rules in order to make the dynasty mode playable and challenging, it's a pretty immersion breaking. So it definitely, wasn't ideal on that end. But all that to say, it felt fun. It felt, it felt replayable enough. I mean, Garrett and I played 25 some seasons, and it felt like, hey, there's a lot of bits and pieces. The game looked good too. Like the graphics looked pretty solid. There were lots of bits and pieces that it felt like a strong foundation and a great love letter to college football fans. Now, we go to college football 26. And obviously a lot of excitement and anticipation. How are they going to build on the original foundations of college football 25? There were certainly some criticisms with 25. How are they going to answer those criticisms? And the initial trailer looked amazing. But in a way, it felt like it was a bit of a lateral push. And I'm going to tell you why. So EA obviously did shift a lot of directions in 26. They did change a lot of things. The game still looked great. It still had a lot of traditions. They even added some new traditions. They finally changed the main menu music from that stupid drum line to actually, having at least 15 fight songs. I hope they keep adding more as they move on. But I digress. They did change some things up. And one of the big things they did was they slowed the gameplay down. Honestly, I wasn't a fan of that. I still wish the gameplay felt a lot more speedy and fluid. But in an effort to, I guess, make the game easier for everybody and even newcomers to the series, they just slowed the gameplay down, similar, honestly, to what Madden was like. And, they tried to create a more realistic football sim, again, like Madden. And I'm not a fan of that direction. I really wish that they had kept the 25 speed of the game, the openness of the game. I really wish that was an aspect that they kept, but they didn't. And, the on the one hand, I do appreciate how they got rid of the cheese plays concepts for the most part. Like, I'm not able to just beat the computer with broken, double wide, go routes concepts. I'm not able to beat them with a hook and ladder every single time. I can't just spam a, wide receiver sweep over and over again and just automatically win the game. You do have to kind of have a bit of a strategy and try different plays over and over. So in that sense, it's appreciated, but taking the creativity, the speed, and the openness of the game, not the right direction, in my opinion. The gameplay, became more controlled and methodical. Already touched on that. So all this to say, College Football 26, it was a solid game. Not amazing, not terrible. Better handled than Madden overall still. I do genuinely think that the team, college football teams at EA, does care about this game. I genuinely believe that. I just think that they are trapped by EA. They're trapped by the Frostbite engine, and they're trapped into not making Madden look bad. Like, they can't just blow Madden out of the water. That would be, taking a shot at their own company. So, God forbid that they're allowed to, have free reign and do something like that. It would be so good if they could. Competition breeds better games for us gamers, but they're not going to do that, of course. I mean, they got to have that corporate safety net. So that's certainly a frustration. Again, the Frostbite engine, I think that is so limiting. It's so animation based that it's just kind of frustrating that it feels a lot more scripted as a result. On any given play, you have players that are sucked into animation that, kind of takes away the unpredictability of the game. And by the end of the game, you're kind of feeling like, yeah, that was fun, but there were definitely parts where it felt a little bit scripted and like that it was just going to happen. It is what it is. Whereas the old NCAA games, I did not feel that. It was you never knew what was going to happen each and every time. So that's what I didn't like. I did like it was harder to take down the computer. You need more actual strategy. Dynasty still remains the heart of the game. Garrett and I just played a ton of Dynasty on College Football 26, not as much as we used to. And again, it's because for the most part, it still is pretty easy to beat the computer. I looked up videos on, having to initiate house rules in order to make the dynasty more challenging. Like I turned on penalties a much higher amount of holding penalties. So I messed around with the sliders a bit to make it feel more immersive. Stadium presentation, still excellent. Rivalry games still feel special. Crowd effects still remain immersive. Although I do wish that there was a little bit more of a pop when you had a massive touchdown, just the roar from the crowd goes ballistic. I still wish there was something like that. But nonetheless, the presentation still looks incredible. College Football 26, I don't really think it had that many massive improvements. It was just a fresh coat of paint. Presentation still looked good. The gameplay improved in some areas while worsening in others. So it just felt like a lateral step. I don't think it was a step forward. And that's certainly something we want to see. We want to see this franchise continue to get better and better. So here's what I want to see in College Football 26 going forward. I want to see a pregame show. Even the older NCAA games had basic pregame presentations. It was Brad Nessler, Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Corso, and it was very basic dialogue. I'm not at all praising like, oh my goodness, they got into the in-depth, statistics and reasons why, none of that. But it was a pregame show, and Lee Corso put the headgear on of the team he thought he was going to win. It was something, at least. College game day reference would be fantastic and a step in the right direction. They could discuss weekly storylines, the Heisman Watch, top 25 breakdowns, rivalry previews, playoff implications. Again, they don't have to get too crazy with it, but even 30 seconds before the game starts, just playing something like that, or having them discuss the storylines of the two teams meeting on the field would be such a step in the right direction. How about the broadcast itself, though? Different broadcast packages would be fantastic. An ESPN scorebug, a Fox Sports scorebug, a CBS Sports scorebug, an NBC Sports scorebug, different music packages, different visual styles, different commentary crews. Any sort of changing it around like that would just make the game feel a lot more immersive, and it would freshen up each and every contest. Don't get me wrong, Reese Davis, Jesse Palmer, and David Pollock are pretty solid. Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. I'll be honest, Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, in my opinion, their reactions to the on-the-field game just seem to be a lot more, I don't know, uninspired, just not as exciting. When I watch Chris Fowler in real life covering games, one game that comes to mind is the Georgia versus Alabama game when Alabama got the win over Georgia. There were some incredible plays where Chris Fowler lost his mind and it was just exploding with enthusiasm covering the incredible plays, especially Ryan Williams' late touchdown over Georgia. he was almost losing his voice towards the end of the game. That's how into it he was getting. Kirk Herbstreit, he brings his own passion and excitement to it. And I just feel like they're very dialed down. And I understand it's hard to, guess what's going to be covered or what's going to happen in the game. So they have to look at a piece of paper and yell into the microphone. And then the game has to match that with what's happening on the field. I get it. But Brad Nessler, Herbstreit, and Corso, I always thought that their reactions were pretty dang good to what was happening on the field. Whenever I had a big touchdown, Brad Nessler would say something like,
1,000 additional lines. He's going to take it to the barn. Touchdown. This is the equivalent of a small novel, just in added dialogue. It took 6 full days to record all the commentary. Because of scheduling conflicts, we weren't even able to have all 3 of us in the room at the same time. Brad Nessler recorded his lines by himself.
They just hit double digits as a team. They're up to 10 sacks.
While Lee and I were able to record ours together the week after.
Yeah, he saw the ball pop up, and he swallowed it like a barbecue pork single.
These were very long days.
They just wrote it down here for me to write. Read. And then he cut up, and then he pitched it.
Okay, do it again.
Watch out.
We got a lot of linebacker movement going.
Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
But we managed to have some fun along the way as well. I mean, this is a video game, remember? I've got to check for quality control,
That's terrible. Oh,
Next time, I will beat it.
It's all right. We'll bounce back next time. Just got to get the fingers loosened up here. We'll go round 2 in a second.
1,000 pages left.
Their calls had energy. Upsets felt huge. National title moments felt special. Their voice lines, they were memorable. Like, he's going to take it to the barn, touchdown. Like, I remember that. Whereas in these games, it's more just background noise, and it doesn't really jump out. And they honestly don't know what they're talking about half the time either. Sometimes Jesse Palmer will just come out and say, these guys are one of the top 10 defenses in the country. And I'll check the statistics, and my defense is nowhere near a top 10 defense in the country. So a lot of the times they're just saying crap, and it's not even factual. So it's just pretty immersion breaking on that end. I would rather them keep it simple than going too in depth with what their lines are, in favor more of giving actually memorable lines and memorable delivery on those lines. The old games made Saturdays feel like an event, and I hope that we see that in college football 27 and beyond. Recruiting. I mean, let's talk about recruiting. I feel like recruiting still needs a lot of work. It feels really mechanical. It's mostly just assigning points. There's no relationship driven stuff. There's no real strategy behind it. It's, I really want this recruit, so I'm going to put 50 points on him. And then you just see what happens. I mean, I don't need recruiting to be so intuitive that it becomes a challenge each and every week to where you're just banging your head against a wall trying to sign somebody and it's a puzzle that you have to figure out. I don't need it to be insanely difficult or intuitive or over the top, but it's something a little bit more than just here's 50 points for this guy, here's 50 points for this guy. And I do think that recruiting does need to be a little bit more challenging. I mean, there were numerous times where Garrett and I were both, Garrett would have like 15 5-star signings. I would have 10, and the rest of the, college football world would, be at less than that, especially in 25. But in 26, it became Georgia's show. And now Georgia's always the number one recruiting class, almost without fail. And if you beat them, that's pretty miraculous. But again, Garrett and I were able to gobble up most of the 5-star recruits, and everybody else is fighting over extras. So yeah, I think the recruiting needs work. And maybe you can throw something in with NIL, maybe add an element of that to it. I don't know, but I just think that the recruiting needs to be touched up. How about the Dynasty menu? I mean, the menus feel bland. They really haven't changed much from 25 to 26. It needs more personality. Again, more fight songs. Keep adding to that. The trophy room, I think, needs to be touched up on. The old games, it was a literal room that you could go from trophy to trophy, and it would even show you the stats and the scores from the games. Like, why can't we go into something like that? Historical stat tracking. It really helps with the immersion side of things. Program history pages, ESPN style weekly recaps. I wish it was more like that. And I think that in the future, it may be just a small quality of life thing, but as we continue to get further into the college football series, then I hope that they are going to be making changes like this. How about more customization options? And I'm talking about pregame stuff. How about the crowd color out options? If you want to have a whiteout on a given week, you should have the ability to change the way the crowd's looking and just put everybody in white. If you want to have a blackout, you should have that ability. You should have the ability to pick some night games throughout the season. And you get a little bit more option on that end. Or how about stripe outs? More control over kickoff times, better weather customization. Why not just give us the control to continue to make our story? You just let us have more freedom to play on that end. GTA, one of the things that is incredible about the GTA franchise is literally you just go out and do whatever the heck you want for the most part. I wish that EA would take off the training wheels in a sense and let us do the same with Dynasty if we wanted. We get a little bit more control over our scheduling. You get a little bit more say in how the schedule plays out home and away. Here's another small quality of life thing. Garrett is always the commissioner in our leagues, and I never get to see what my season schedule is like. He has to text me screenshots of what the scheduling is going to look like. Why not just, give us both the control to where we're both able to look at the schedule and whatnot? Just small things like that for the most part, EA hasn't really cared about. I hope that that's something that they would adjust down the road. So, in retrospect, College Football 26, it was a solid game. It was a lot of fun. It's something I still play, and I'm going to buy College Football 27, and I know that there's probably going to be a lot of quality of life things that I'm just not over the top excited about. I hope EA is open to hearing criticism and continuing to change things about the game and improve things about the game. But I'm not holding my breath, really. If I was giving College Football 25 like a 7 or something like that, I'd probably give College Football 26 a 6 or a 7. It's still fun. I still enjoy it, but there's just a lot to be improved upon. And I hope that, the EA team will actually be taking some of this stuff into account, and they will continue to make improvements because, again, I love this series. The old games, I keep harping on the old games. I sound like an old guy, but they weren't technically perfect. They just felt alive, and that's why I was playing the 2014 game almost 5 to 10 years later, because it was still a lot of fun. We'll see how 27 pans out, and curious to hear your guys' feedback. So comment below, like the video, subscribe. All of that would be much appreciated. Until next time, this is Saturday's Rewritten. I'll catch you guys later.